What's going on, everybody? I am going to be using some new supplies from Erin Lee Creative, as well as doing something that I normally don't do, which is ink blending and masking through a stencil. Yes, you've heard that right. I can't believe that I'm going to be doing it either, but I absolutely love this stamp set and I have this idea in my head, so hopefully it will work out. It's going to be sort of like a clean-ish look, but also have that mixed media style that I love. So if you are struggling with mixed media or don't know where to start, then maybe this technique might be the one for you. Let's get into it. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is get some color down on my cardstock, and I'm using Strathmore mixed media paper. I will have a link for that below, as well as all of the other supplies. And I'm gonna try to carefully add a little bit of color. I don't want this to be overpowered. So I'm gonna add a little bit of pumice stone kind of in the corners. And then maybe a little bit of lost shadow. And some antique linen. Okay, and then we're gonna hit it with a little bit of water. Get that moving around. Okay, and I'm gonna lift up my paper, move it back and forth, side to side, get all that color moving, and then maybe a little bit more water here. And don't be afraid to use your fingers if you need to. Okay, and then we're going to dry this. And I'm gonna bring in my cooling rack. This helps the air and the heat go through the paper, and then it allows the paper to hopefully dry a little bit quicker. All right, I'm gonna get some of whatever's on my mat left over. Just kind of pick it up, smush it down. Perfect. So I'm going to take some water and kind of flick it on and drop it onto my background. This is the beauty of Distress products, is that it reacts to water, so you get a really cool effect going on. I'm going to take a paper towel and dab up some of that water. All right, I'm going to place my paper down on the mat and hopefully it will hold. I'm going to take this stencil here and I'm going to create 3, and I think I like these 3. All right, I'm gonna place my stencil sort of off center, just like that, and then I'm gonna place the other one kind of like this, and then like that, like so it'll be staggered a little bit. And I'm gonna place it around here. Ish, okay. I'm gonna do some ink blending and then also use some Distress Watercolor Pencils. All right, I'm going to create a little shadow here. I don't want it to be overpowering, but just enough to where you could see that outline of the stencil, okay? Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is lift this up. See how it's just very subtle right there? And then I'm going to take that second one and kind of overlap it. So this is where I'm gonna have to kind of do a little bit of masking. I don't usually do, so. All right, I have scrapbook.com's mint tape. I'm gonna mask this part and then up top here. Take whatever's on my blending tool and just very lightly add that there. And this is a vintage photo that I'm using. And then take that last one, sort of overlap it, and then place my stencil down. It's not that bad masking, at least for what I'm doing here. There's a lot more intricate masking that goes on. All right, so I'm going to peel this up. And that is exactly what I was going for. Something like that. And then now what I'm going to do is take my stencil again and I'm going to take some of the watercolor pencils. And I'm going to mask that. Mask that. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just take the vintage photo and just outline it right almost like this. And then take a water brush and just kind of bring that in. Nothing crazy, but just to kind of give a little more definition. I think I'm going underneath that stencil, but that's okay because I do want more of like a mixed media fill anyways. I'm gonna take a little bit of this scorched timber and just kind of place it in a couple different spots. And then I'm gonna splatter a little bit of that on there. And then same thing with the vintage photo. Perfect. And I'm gonna lift this up. And that is exactly what I wanted. And we're going to mask off the top and the bottom. I'm going to do the same, just kind of outline that stencil. I'm not pressing too hard. I don't want to break the fibers of the paper. Just kind of lightly going around that stencil. And then I may even go in with a little bit of this scorched timber. Scorched timber is very dark, so a little bit can go a long way. I'm going to go in with that watercolor brush and just blend that out a little bit. All right, now I'm going to take some of this vintage photo and load it up with some water and then just splatter away. And then same thing with the scorched timber. Okay, and we are going to lift this up. Perfect. Again, outline that stencil, add a little bit of this scorched timber, and then blend it all together. All right, then we're gonna add our splatters. Look at that. I absolutely love this. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to actually do a little more masking, I guess, because I want to add a little bit of stamping onto these little areas here. And I'm going to do that with this stamp here, and I'm going to stamp very lightly. I don't want it to overpower. So I'm going to ink up my stamp, kind of stamp it off a little bit, and then just kind of roll that on there. All right, and then a little bit there. All right, last one. Ink up the stamp, stamp off. Perfect. Isn't that just so cool? All right, so I'm going to add this butterfly. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me on one side, and then it has the butterfly wing on the other side. And I'm actually going to stamp it on a separate piece of cardstock. That way I can cut it out. And I think I'm going to do a little bit of blues. All right, so I'm gonna ink up the edges of my stamp, hopefully, with Uncharted Mariner, and then we'll do the center with Speckled Egg. Probably have to do a few different stamps here. Okay, and then we'll do some Speckled Egg. All right, the Speckled Egg is not dark enough, so I'm just going to use the Uncharted Mariner. All right, I'm going to Sprinkle just a little bit of water on here just to get a little movement going on. All right, I feel like the background needs a little more blue, so I'm going to get brave and splatter on some, I don't know how I feel about this. Okay, and then maybe a little Uncharted Mariner. Now we're going to spray this with some water. Move that around quite a bit. All right, so that's what that is looking like. And with the butterfly on there, I actually like that a lot better. I carefully spritzed some of that antique linen on there just so that it wasn't as stark white. And I'm going to rough up the edges of the butterfly a little bit. Not too much because I don't want to lose those words, but just enough. All right, I'm going to rough up the edges of this card panel as well. All right, so I inked up around the edges with some vintage photo, and I'm gonna do the same thing on this butterfly. All right, now I'm going to add some white splatters. And I always like to turn my paper when I'm adding splatters. That way I can kind of get the splatters in all different directions. All right, I'm gonna ink the edges of my card base. I usually don't do this, but I feel like it just needs it because it's kind of it has like a very vintage vibe. So I wanna make sure everything flows nicely. That's perfect. All right, I'm going to adhere my panel to my card base with some double-sided adhesive. All right, so I'm going to take this scripty stamp. It says, "And all my days you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so good." And I'm going to actually kind of stamp it around on my card just because I feel like it needs something else. And this is a great way also if you don't, if you're not making a more faith-based card and you want to add some sort of like faith-based something, taking a more scripty stamp and just kind of doing this brings that into your card making and into your projects. So I really like doing that. All right, I'm going to pop up my little butterfly and then adhere it in the center, just like that. All right, I'm actually going to adhere the Bible verse right underneath, just like that. I felt it needed just a little something else. And there we go. All right, and there is our card. We got the butterfly and the sentiment or Bible verse in this case. And then just in case you can't read it, it has the Bible verse, so you can look it up right there, Philippians 4:13. Love that verse. And I absolutely love this background, how it turned out. I was a little hesitant when I started adding the blue, but I think when everything kind of came together, it looks amazing. All right, so remember, I don't do a lot of stenciling and masking or even a lot of ink blending, but I did get out of my comfort zone, and even though it was a pretty simple technique, I still am expanding my creativity, and I definitely want to encourage you to do the same. Definitely pull out some things that you want to play with that you're hesitant to, or maybe try something new, and you may end up not liking it. I actually really loved doing this, so I will hopefully incorporate it more into my card making. But I hope you enjoyed, and here are a few more videos that you can enjoy doing some more mixed media. I want to thank you all for watching, and don't forget to stay creative, my friends.